You're listening to the Save the Date podcast, where we talk all things weddings, jewellery and romance. With love from Cullen Jewellery.
Hello and welcome back to the Save the Date podcast. I'm Sheridan.
And I'm Juliette, and we are so happy you're here.
Today, we're going to be talking about your guests. So obviously your wedding day is about you and your partner, but at the same time, I guess you are putting on a bit of a party, an event for your guests to enjoy as well. And if you're wanting your wedding day to be extra memorable, then we have some juicy tips for you.
So sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it.
So first up, we want to talk about the basics of just, I guess, keeping your guests generally happy throughout the day. And that is giving them something to eat, something to drink, and something to do or watch. So let's break that down a little bit in terms of what that actually means. So firstly, we have something to eat. And yes, this is relatively basic.
Yeah, and obvious.
Obvious.
Yes.
But hungry people get hangry.
Yes.
And the last thing that you want is for your wedding guests to be hangry.
Yeah. And I think obviously, it's a bit more obvious that you need to feed your guests during the ceremony afterwards. Reception. During this reception afterwards. But I feel like what may get overlooked is that if you're having your guests hang around in between the ceremony and the reception, that's quite a long period of time between when your guests first arrived and if they've sat through the entire ceremony, and then you've got an hour in between the two. Like, you kind of want to have little nibbles during that time before your proper maybe dinner or meal later on, because that's, I feel like, when people can get peckish.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing, that's when there's a bit, people might get a bit.
Because that's also that cocktail hour is also kind of when there's not as much structure to the night. So they don't really necessarily have anything else to do other than mingle and hopefully eat.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's no food there, then they kind of just standing around, not really kind of with anything to do.
Yeah, and you don't want to just have drinks during that cocktail hour because, again, if people are on empty stomachs, you don't want people getting too tipsy at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Or whenever it may be.
Like you said, you might have an hour cocktail hour, but then generally you're not going to go straight into sitting down for dinner as soon as the reception starts. Like, you might have another half an hour to potentially an hour of other formalities before they're then even still getting fed. Yeah. So it kind of just can all build on.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely make sure that you are giving your guests food during that cocktail hour. And something that I think to be mindful of with your food choices is try and make sure that the food that you're picking is going to be enjoyed by the majority of people. Like, for example, I know a lot of people really love seafood, but a lot of people also don't. So if you and your partner are people that really like seafood and you want to have seafood as part of your wedding day, make sure that you have other options for the guests that might not eat that. Because otherwise they're probably not going to eat anything. Yeah. And then, they'll get hungry and probably a little bit bitter because there's no food for them.
Even just the difference between, some people don't eat chicken, some people don't eat red meat. So having different options. And I suppose maybe you can, with your wedding invites, you can also maybe attach any dietary requirements, if there's anything significant, maybe you just want people to get back to you about maybe dairy-free, gluten-free, all of those allergies, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like it is in general also good to just have a variety, even if it's not I guess, I don't know if people would necessarily assume that most people would eat chicken, but there's people who don't. Yeah. And just having those options is always a good idea.
And also, I think another thing is making sure that your the meal you're giving your guests for dinner is actually substantial enough to fill them up.
Yes.
Because I know that especially with some weddings, you might have a relatively fancy meal and it might not be that big. So is that actually realistically going to feed your guests properly, or are they still going to be hungry? It's the last thing that you want is like for everyone to still be really hungry after dinner and not feel like they've had enough.
And on that same note as well, I feel like if your reception is quite a long period of time, like I know different I feel like kind of the standard is to finish up around like 11:30ish, but some venues do let you go more to like 1 a.m. And for anyone who's ever like gone out on a night out and after they've had a few drinks, even though they've had a full dinner, you get peckish again around 1 a.m. And you don't necessarily want maybe the sweets that might be on offer as the last thing that was on offer, I should say.
Yeah.
So I've seen people who have had weddings where later in the night, even though they've provided a full dinner, later in the night they've literally handed out like cheeseburgers and stuff as like the midnight snack, and it just pops off because everyone's like, after a few drinks, they're like,
and something
greasy.
Like that too is like exactly what you want.
So it just hits the spot, like chips and burgers as like a late night supper almost. If you're going, a bit later, I don't know if they'd necessarily get hungry again if you're finishing up around 11:30.
Well, I feel like even then, if you're finishing up at about 11:30, you might be serving dinner at like 6:30. So that's still what,
a few hours.
Like, say finish dinner at 7, 8, 9, 10. That's still like 4 hours.
Yeah.
That like they're potentially not eating except for sweets. So I love that.
Have a midnight
Have
snack.
someone do a Macca's order
Absolutely.
Uber Eats Macca's. Yeah. I think I've seen someone do like those 2-minute noodles.
Yes.
I swear I've seen
really
somewhere someone did that, and they just had them next to like, because a lot of venues will have like a hot water station for if people want to make like tea and coffee. Yeah. But yeah, they had like 2-minute noodles next to that, so you can make that as well.
Elite. That would be
I love that.
good.
I wish I had something like that at my wedding. That would have been sick.
So good.
Okay, next up is something to drink, and I guess this kind of goes along the same lines as something to eat, but you want to make sure that your guests obviously have something to drink throughout the night, and make sure that this isn't always necessarily alcohol. Like make sure that there's water available and anything for people who might not want to drink. But it's important for drinks to start also at cocktail hour. Because, otherwise your guests are literally just going to be standing there with nothing to do. And make sure your guests know where to go. Because I know that some people will have like a cocktail hour, and during that their caterer will like bring around beer and wine or beer and champagne or something like that, and kind of wander throughout your guests. But do they need to go up to the bar potentially, or is there going to be people wandering around? Just make sure your guests are aware what they have to do, because you're most likely not going to be there to be able to tell them.
Yeah. And another kind of tip that I would say with drinks as well is if you're looking at the weather for your wedding and you can see that it's going to be quite hot, I would actually consider providing water bottles at the ceremony as well.
Yeah.
Because whether you're in a church, whether you're outdoors, it can get quite hot. And if your guests are just standing there, I know sometimes brides can be fashionably late. And so that ceremony could go for up to an hour or so. And 100%. If it is sweltering heat, you want to make sure that no one's fainting, everyone's okay. So just even to have the option of some water bottles, like everyone might not necessarily take one, but you've got men in suits that are fully clothed, and if it's a 35-degree day Celsius, it can get very, very warm and hot, and I think that's like a little nice touch to just something to keep in mind if you wanted to do that. Just a few bottles of water. Yeah,
that's a good one too, because like I know people who have weddings like more towards the cooler months will often think about like blankets for during the ceremony, in case like they're having an outdoor wedding, like they'll have blankets in case people want to put a blanket on, or like fans in case people get hot. But definitely having water is like such a big one. All right, and then the last one is something to do or something to watch. So this is kind of pretty easy because generally throughout the day and night of your wedding, you have lots of things happening. So like you obviously have your ceremony and then the speeches, your first dance, you'll have like music, everything that is going to, I guess, keep your guests entertained throughout the night. But you might also look at having like lawn games throughout the cocktail hour, just so that they have something else to do. A photo booth is another really great one. And something that like kind of seems cringy, like thinking about it when you're not like partying, but having well, like when you're not like in that mood, but like having dance floor props is like can be a really fun one, like especially once people start having a few drinks. Like we had, what were they? They weren't like sparklers, but they were like these sticks that were like lights.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You could like wave around, like glow, kind of like glow sticks, but they were like switched on and off, like battery operated, kind of. And our like band also had like blow up guitars and stuff like that.
Yeah,
which like I know it sounds cringy.
We're aware.
Well aware. But like after you've had a few drinks and like if you've got kids there, especially like kids are going to absolutely love that stuff. But yeah, just like adds another layer of something that your guests can like kind of have a bit of fun with to keep them entertained throughout. Something else to be mindful of is music is one of those things that can really like make or break your reception. If the music is not the vibe, it's not the vibe.
Yeah.
Like there's no going back.
No. It's a real mood killer.
It is a real mood killer. So make sure that your DJ, if you're having a DJ, knows the vibe of your wedding and can also like
read
the room and pick up on like what is working and what isn't. Because if you've got like all your aunties and uncles wanting classics playing and they're the only people that are on the dance floor, make sure your DJ is not playing like techno music that then like not going to want to be around for. And the other way around, if you've got all the like your best friends on the dance floor and the last thing that they want to listen to is like music from the 70s, your DJ needs to be able to feel that out.
Yeah, and even like I feel like as well, even during the cocktail hour too, like even a small element of music, like it doesn't necessarily have to be a DJ where you're paying an act of some sort to be there for that extra hour, but yeah, just some sort of background music, maybe like an iPod or a phone or whatever, that it just adds again that extra layer of creating the vibes and the mood. So it's not just silence and people talking.
I think like one of my favorite things is when people have like a live band or like live singer during cocktail hour. Because they just like last week we had Jess on the podcast and she obviously has a very beautiful voice, but that kind of like vibe throughout the cocktail hour can also kind of just like help to switch the vibe from like your ceremony. They can like start playing more fun songs for your guests to kind of like start to think more about like the party vibe of the reception.
And live music is always the best. It's like so nice to listen to.
Okay, so now we've looked at the basics. Let's get into a couple of tips that we have that are, I guess, a little bit more in depth that are going to just make your wedding day even more memorable. And the first one is actually your celebrant. So I know this might sound kind of silly, but like your DJ can make or break your reception, your celebrant can really make or break your ceremony. Because if they kind of don't match the vibe of you and your partner and they're not really like clicking with your guests, it's probably not gonna kind of feel all that great. So make sure that your celebrant really knows and understands you both as a couple, and also knows and understands your love story. Because your celebrant generally is going to tell you or tell the story of your life together. And so you want them to be like a good storyteller as well. Because like there's some people that can really tell a story and there's some people that just can't.
So it's like really engaging. Yeah. Because that's like, it's almost kind of like the same concept where if they're doing speeches and someone's just rambling on about random stuff and no one is listening to them. Same thing with your celebrant.
Yeah.
They've got to keep the crowd engaged.
Yeah. Yeah, so your celebrant will just absolutely make a world of difference in terms of the flow of your ceremony and actually making it enjoyable for your guests. Mm-hmm. Another tip that I have for your celebrant is if it isn't somebody you know, so obviously if you have someone you know marrying you, then by all means have them stand like with you the whole time. But if it's not somebody that you know and they're not like close with the family or anything like that, have them stand off to the side for like as long or as much of the ceremony as possible. This makes for really great photos, obviously, because none of your photos are going to be like photobombed by someone that you met
don't know
3 times like in the lead up to your wedding and don't actually mean anything to you. But it means like your guests are going to really be able to just focus on the two of you. You're going to be able to just focus on the two of you and your guests rather than so like if you have someone obviously talking to you standing right next to you, you're going to be looking at them, right? But if they are standing off to the side, you're going to be looking at your partner and at your guests for their reactions as well. So it just kind of makes it a bit more intimate in a way that you're kind of sharing that moment and hearing that story with your guests rather than like it just being told to you, if that makes sense, I guess. Yeah. And the other thing with this, having your celebrant not stand directly behind you, is there's absolutely no chance that they are going to photobomb your first kiss.
Oh, yes. Very important.
Because we've all seen like the videos where, you know, the maid of honor like drags the celebrant out of the way and like you're only just getting it in time. And especially for like videos as well, if you've got a videographer, you kind of get that awkward interaction of like the celebrant being pulled away.
Yeah. And they're just awkwardly standing in the back.
Yeah, like standing there like this, like staring directly through you.
Not the vibe.
Definitely not the vibe. But yeah, it's just like an easy way to kind of make sure that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And even if you do want them there, like next to you for most of it, have them stand nowhere near you when you're like when they're going to announce you as like newlyweds. Like we just request for them to stand by to the side just for that moment at the very, very least, just so that there's no risk.
Yeah. All right. Our next one on the list is wedding favours. So wedding favours, I feel like, can often be forgotten or left behind if you've got them in a separate place to where your guests are maybe sitting or something. So I feel like it's really nice to have them, and maybe if you're making sure you're putting them somewhere that people know that it's for them and they get to take them home.
Yeah, I feel like way gone are the days of like a stubby holder with like Mr. and Mrs. This, or like, I don't know, a coaster with your wedding date on it.
Yeah.
Like, as much as that is really nice for you and your partner, like no one else actually cares.
Yeah.
Like maybe your parents, but that's about it.
That's it.
Like your auntie and uncle, your cousins.
They're
like
too specific. Yeah.
Like they just don't care to have something with your name and wedding date on it.
Yeah, no.
So really try and make sure that when you're thinking about your favours, you're thinking about something that your guests will actually really appreciate. And I think that if you're really struggling with this, don't bother.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like you said, so many, like it's so often that people forget to take their wedding favours. Even I feel like if they're left on the table, just because people might not go back to the table. Yeah. Like at the end of the night, if they've been like dancing and stuff, they don't have a jacket or anything, they might just head straight out the door and leave after they've said goodbye, and they don't go back to the table to grab anything that's left over. So yeah, I don't think your guests are going to care if you don't have a wedding favour for them. Like it's not a huge deal, but we have some examples that we think like might be nice options. And the first one is like a personalized cookie or a biscuit, anything that like they can eat, whether it's like chocolates.
Anything edible.
Anything edible.
Always goes down well.
Yeah. Because like we were saying earlier about making sure your guests are fed throughout the night, if they get hungry, like they can just eat that. And then like that's their wedding favor. It's like a nice gesture for them. And yeah, they're not going to necessarily forget it. And if they do, you can take it home and eat it. It's not like you're just going to
go to waste.
Yeah, you're not going to end up with like an excess of something random that you don't know what to do with it. Like a cookie, you just
eat it.
Gonna eat it.
Another really cute one is like bottled limoncello or some sort of drink.
Yeah.
Where you can get those like little like mini shot kind of bottles. And again, it's like they can either choose to take it home or a high chance they'll be drinking it throughout the night. And it's just a fun little way of like, especially if you're not doing spirits on the bar tab, I feel like it's like a fun little way where the guests can still have a shot of some sort and feel like they're getting the party going with their little wedding favor. Yeah. Or if they don't want it on the night, they can also bring that home and we'll most likely eventually drink it at some point.
Yeah. Or like that's also one of those things where like one person might not want it, like a grandma or like grandparent or something might not want it, but they'll be like, oh, like, you have it.
There'll be someone on the dance floor who will take it, I guarantee.
There might be someone on the dance floor who had too many, but
as well.
I've seen a few of those lately. Especially limoncello for some reason. I keep seeing it. And I feel like that is just the cutest one ever because like it looks really pretty. I've seen like people put it in really nice bottles, like glass bottles, and it's just great.
Yeah.
Love
really
it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cute. I'm trying to think if I've seen anything else but that. But I feel like that's like the main one I've seen too.
Yeah. I feel like 'cause it's just a bit like
fruity, zesty.
It seems a bit fancier than like vodka or like
shot of vodka.
Here's some tequila or like
mini tequilas would be good.
I feel like even
a little salt as well. A little lime.
I feel like even you could just like go to the like bottle-o and buy like a whole range of different ones. Yeah. And then even just like put them on the middle of the table and then people can just like pick which one.
Take them. Yeah.
They're gonna, because again, like people are gonna, if there's a shot on the table, like someone will take it.
All right. And this next one is kind of a different option where it's like if you don't necessarily, maybe if you're on a bit more of a budget and you don't want to spend too much money on something like wedding favors. Another really cute option is actually to leave little like notes on each plate of a guest where they can either be handwritten or printed out so it's nice and, you know, really neat and all that kind of stuff. And you literally just put a sentence or two that is custom to that guest. So maybe it's like a fun little memory. It's a fun little like inside joke that you have with that person, and it's even though you're not necessarily giving them something physical, it's like it's almost like more playing on that emotion where it's like, oh my god, like this is what they said about me, and then everyone's going around the room saying like, oh, what did they say about you, what did you get on your plate? And it was actually quite a fun interactive thing when you were actually arriving and sitting down, that they had this little note and card on everyone's placemat, I don't know, desk, table, plate. And so that was also a really cute one, which you're still getting the effect of having a really cute favor of some sort, but it'd be very budget friendly. Yeah,
I love that one so much. When you first told me about that, I was like, get out.
I think mine said something about social media, or it had something to do with my job, which was really sweet.
I feel like that's cool. I hadn't thought about it as like a conversation starter as well. Yeah, because a lot of the time at weddings, like you don't know everybody that's there, so you might be like sat at a table with, you know, only one or two people that you know, but it's like a cool way to get everybody talking, especially and like break the ice a little bit.
Especially if it's like really niche things where it's like I think, I can't remember what mine said exactly, but then like you kind of have to explain it to people.
Yeah.
And it's like funny to hear the backstory of what they've written on the card. If it's like really kind of like, usually most of when I was at the wedding, it was, quite niche, each thing to each person. So it was, a really good conversation starter.
I love it so much. It's just like, I also saw a TikTok like only recently of someone who did this as well, and they had like 115 guests or something, and they fully hand wrote
everything.
And from what I could see as well, like she didn't show any of the actual letters, but it was like a full on like A5.
Oh wow.
Like full on thing. And I'm like, that would be, yes, obviously budget friendly, because you're not potentially spending like $10 or $15 on each person if you're like, say, buying shots or something. But that would take up so much time. Like, and I actually couldn't even imagine.
I know. You'd be writing those for months.
Yeah. Far out. Like imagine you've just decided to do it like 2 weeks before the wedding. Like, how sore your hand would get.
But then again, on the guest side, you get that and be like, whoa, like this is so like, how much time have they put into this? That's so sweet.
Yeah, that is definitely like a surefire way to make your guests feel like so special and like part of your wedding.
And
I love
even
it.
just the 1 or 2 sentences, even that was enough to make you feel like, they thought about me.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cute. They also did it for +1s too.
Yeah.
And I was like,
wow. I don't know you yet, but maybe we will.
Yeah, can you imagine? Oh my God, hi, this person said you're great.
So glad you're friends with my friend. What do we think on them?
Yeah, do we agree?
Do we agree?
Okay, another one that I just thought of, and this isn't in our notes, but it just came to mind about kind of making your guests feel, I guess, a bit more special is, and I spoke about this on one of our videos the other day because Alex Cooper did it at her wedding, and it was like walking in the opposite direction, in like down the aisle.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I don't really know how to describe this in a way without like showing it, but basically like all your guests are facing one way and you're walking like towards the way that your guests are facing, whereas traditionally I guess you walk in from behind them. But I feel like that's another way, like the way that I sort of looked at it the first time was like it makes that moment with your partner, I guess, I feel a little bit more intimate. But I think that would also feel really special for your guests too, to like be able to see you in that way. And
coming
also
towards.
If you think about this, your parents or like your whoever is not walking you down the aisle, like your closest family is generally in like the first couple of aisles. So when they like all turn around to see you walk down the aisle from the back, they're like at the back.
Yeah, they don't get to see
so
you.
they don't really get to see you necessarily all that well.
You turn the corner or walk through the door.
Yeah. Whereas like if you're walking towards them, then like your closest family and friends, your like VIPs are actually also getting like the best view of you as well, which I think is also really cool.
Yeah, I like that too.
Okay, the next one is to try and be carefree throughout your wedding day. Obviously, planning a wedding is very stressful and it can feel kind of stressful on the day as well. But try and handle any issues that arise with grace and try and like just laugh them off as they come. Because that is going to make your guests feel so much more comfortable as well than like, let's just say something small goes wrong and you kind of just laugh it off and go, oh, like, I can't believe that happened. How funny. Your guests are going to be able to like laugh along with you. Whereas if you're like, oh my gosh, like this thing went wrong and rah, and start like getting angry at people, like your guests are going to feel so awkward.
Yeah. Unless someone rocks up in white. Yeah. Then you have an
In that case.
That's an exception.
In that case, you just get a bottle of red.
And the best friend. Whoops. Ha 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 ha.
Oopsie daisy.
That is so
oh,
funny.
silly me.
But yes, you don't want to, even just for yourself, you don't want to look back and be like, I wish I didn't care about that so much.
Yeah, because I feel like it's happened to us all where like you've reacted to something in the moment and then you look back even like a few hours later and you're like, oh, that's so embarrassing. Why did I react like that? Like I could have just handled that so much better.
Yeah, it worked out okay.
It worked out fine in the end. Yeah. And like on your wedding day, yes, obviously you want everything to be perfect, but chances are not everything will be. But yeah, I think it's just so much about how you handle those potential issues on the day is going to have such a big impact to your guests. Like I saw another TikTok video, here we go, of this bride, and you know how it's really popular at the moment, brides will have like a slim dress and then like an overskirt to go over the top. She forgot her
I think I saw this too.
And she got to the end of the aisle and she like just like asked the celebrant for the microphone. She was like, hey guys, I'm so sorry. But I actually just realized that I'm not wearing half of my dress, so can we just take 2 seconds?
Put it on.
And someone can go grab my dress please. And like the way that she handled that was just like, let's just have a laugh about it because it's funny. And like, let's just
like, what else are you gonna do?
Quickly get dressed.
Yeah, because like the alternative was to just not say anything, be kind of annoyed, and then what, you've paid for half this dress that you don't get to wear.
Yeah. And I feel like if you did that and like tried to just be like, whatever, you're gonna be not as like relaxed throughout the ceremony then.
And it'll be on your mind.
All you're going to be thinking about is this stupid dress that you're not wearing.
And even afterwards, I feel like it will still stick with you being like, oh, I can't believe I forgot to do that.
Yeah.
Like, oh. Whereas like you still in a fun way made it work and like, you still got to wear it and problem solved.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, if you and your partner are enjoying yourself, your guests are going to be like much more likely to also enjoy themselves as well. And also I think another thing that goes hand in hand with this is like, we say it a lot, is making sure your wedding is actually authentic to you and your partner. Because the people that are at your wedding, like they know you and your partner, they know what you're like. And if you are having like a wedding day that you've planned potentially just to make other people happy and it's not what you and your partner actually want, like chances are that is going to reflect like back on your guests, and your guests will be like, why are they doing that? Like that's so not them. I never would have picked that for this couple. But yeah, if you're authentic to yourself, like that is just going to show so much better for your guests as well.
Yeah. And I feel like your energy just radiates.
Yeah.
And people will be able to tell that like you're not having a good time or something, and they'll be like, oh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, you want them to shed like happy tears, not like
ooh
awkward, cringy tears.
Ooh.
All right, so they are, I guess, like our main big tips that we have for you to having a memorable wedding day. But I have a couple of other little tidbits, or we have a couple of other little things that are just extras that might make your wedding day that little bit extra fun. And the first one is a live wedding painter.
Yes, I've
or
seen
a live
these.
Artist. This was like
so fun.
I would have died to have a live wedding painter at my wedding, but
they paint the guests as well, or just you.
So
I feel like I've seen both.
I've seen both as well. So the one that I like would have absolutely loved just does the couple.
Oh yeah.
So they just do like a big painting of the couple, like an in-depth proper like acrylic painting of the couple, and that would have been like, if there's one thing that I could fully change about my wedding, it would be that. But it was just, they're quite expensive and was not in any way, shape or form in my budget.
Yeah.
So like was never going to happen.
One of those extra things.
It was
that.
Yeah, fully one of those extra things.
How much do they cost roughly?
I think it was around the same of like a videographer.
Damn.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah, that is quite a bit.
And I was like, that's just not happening.
No.
But like, yeah, a live wedding painter, or like you were saying, I've also seen, I've seen this one page in particular that does like of all your guests.
Yes.
Your guests can just like go up and they'll do, I think it's a watercolor painting or something.
Yeah. That's the one I've seen.
Yeah. And that's
That
another really cool thing, because that's like also something that you can have as your wedding favor to your guests. And that is like, surely they're going to take that home.
Yeah. And it's like, I feel like as well, because it's themselves.
Yeah.
They'll appreciate it, or they'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
More than stop making it more about you.
Yeah.
Favor. So even though it is your day, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
I just read this before and I was like, hold on. How did I not know this was a thing? An oyster shucker?
Yeah.
Do share. Please enlighten me.
I've like never been to a wedding with this, but I have seen like people talk about having like a roaming oyster shucker at the wedding.
Like actually, wait, as in opening the oyster, or just like an oyster platter?
No, like opening.
What?
At least that was my understanding. I don't eat oysters. They're like not my vibe. But
I love oysters. That would be really cool.
But like that's just like another thing that is probably going to be quite expensive.
Yeah.
But
unnecessary but fun.
Yeah.
If you've got extra in your budget, why not? That would be so good.
Yeah. The other thing that I've seen lately, and I'd be very surprised if you haven't also seen this video, is the roaming cannoli carts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's another one that is like really cool. They like freshly pipe.
Yeah.
Cannoli?
Cannoli. Or like, have you seen the ice cream little carts as
Oh,
well?
yeah.
So great.
Yeah. Anything like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you said, a fun extra, totally unnecessary. But like, it's just one of those things that if you do have like the space in your budget to do it, so much fun.
Do it. If you can, do it.
Yeah. All right. Another one that you can do, and this would mainly be if you have a videographer, but if you didn't, you could always have like, I don't know, someone to do it for you, but like go around to each guest and ask like a question to each guest, like whether it's about you, like their favorite memory with you. That's just like could be a fun thing that your guests can kind of like feel involved in as well. And then obviously you're going to take that home and have like those like really sweet videos of everybody as well.
Even like if you were to post it online at a later date, once it's all edited together, I feel like people get a kick out of that too, seeing themselves like in the video, being like, oh, and seeing what everyone else said as well.
Have you seen those wedding videos that are like the Office style?
Oh yes,
I love them too. Yeah. Like they're just like so much fun. It's just like a bit of a different way to document your wedding and like kind of include your guests a little bit more, because I mean generally in a wedding video it's very heavily focused obviously on the couple, and your guests are kind of like not even like background characters. Like they might just like show up every now and then, and like, you know, you've got a shot of your guests at the ceremony and then shots of them dancing, but having this kind of thing just means that like your guests might get to have a little bit more fun with it. And maybe not just run away and the camera. Hide their face as soon as they see the camera.
Another really cute thing is to just have different kinds of desserts floating around the room. Again, kind of similar to what we were saying at the very start of the episode, that some people don't like chocolate cake. Some people don't like traditional sponge cake or whatever you may choose for a wedding cake. Yeah, fruit cake or something. So it's always fun to have like some extra like donuts, brownies, cookies floating around the room. And I mean, one of my favorites is like a donut wall. That I see at parties and some weddings and stuff. And I just feel like it's nice to just have them there, that people can go up to get one literally at any point in the night, rather than it's like later in the night they've served the desserts and then you're kind of like, oh, is there still food floating around? I don't know. Whereas like you've got like a little kind of, I don't know, lolly bar almost.
I was just going to say, yeah, even if you had like a lolly bar would be
sort
cool.
of thing where people can just go up and pick, walk away, come back. 30
I
minutes
would
later.
be there all night.
Just back and forth. So
You'd just see me like standing by the lolly bar.
yeah. And then, even just having like actual lollies. Like it's just a nice alternative for people who don't maybe like, the cake, like what we were saying, and they can still have like a little bit of a sweet treat at the end.
And then the last one, we kind of spoke about this earlier, but having like midnight snacks is another great one. Yeah, whether it is like as elaborate as having like Macca's burgers or something
Delivered.
or just like something, I don't know, random, like even if it's like cheese and crackers, I feel like it's something like if you just have like a bit of a charcuterie board.
Yeah.
Is that charcuterie?
Charcuterie. Yeah.
A cheese board.
A cheese board. A platter.
A platter. Put out or something like that. That, again, your guests can kind of just go to and kind of snack off so no one ends up hungry. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Save the Date podcast. We hope you learned something new, and if you're currently planning your wedding, congratulations, good luck, and have fun.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you follow or subscribe and leave us a review wherever it is that you're listening.
Make sure to come and connect with us on our socials at the Save the Date podcast and join our Facebook group, the Save the Date community. We hope you have a wonderful day or night, and we'll be back with another episode next week. Bye.
Bye.